You hired an attorney, you trusted the process, and somewhere between the first filing and the final order, you lost. Maybe you lost time with your kids. Maybe you left money on the table. Maybe you said the wrong thing in the wrong room to the wrong person. And nobody warned you that moment would cost you. What if the problem wasn't your case? What if the problem was that nobody gave you the attorney's roadmap? Today, I'm sitting down with a family law attorney who has been inside hundreds of courtrooms, hundreds of cases, and she's about to tell you directly what women consistently get wrong, what they don't say, what they don't ask, and what changes everything when they finally do. Welcome back. Welcome to Divorcing Strong, the podcast that pulls no punches when it comes to divorce. I'm Becky Sampson, better known as Bulldog Becky Brockovich, and I'm here to give you the straight talk, the strategies, and the subpoena secrets you won't hear anywhere else. With expert guests and proven advice, you'll learn your rights, your options, and gain your power that encourages a fair and equitable outcome. Divorce doesn't have to break you. It can build you. Let's get to it. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Divorcing Strong. I'm Becky Sampson, your host. And I'm slowing down a little bit with these podcasts because we've had so many in the queue. And I'm very, very grateful for the people that have reached out to me who have found the podcast, that they have found them helpful. Definitely connecting with professionals throughout the United States to help you navigate through these legal process of unwinding and unraveling a divorce. And I know that it's really hard. This last week has been a really, really heavy week for me, just because I've received so many phone calls from people who are really, really struggling and grasping for everything that they can just to stay afloat during divorce. And I just want to let you know, if that is you, I completely get it. I just got off a call right before this podcast with somebody who's got an incredible story. And the only thing I really felt like I could give her is the hope. And that's what I do these podcasts for, is to bring you hope that there is life after divorce. There is life during divorce, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Because I remember just like it was yesterday, waking up in the morning and not knowing what my next step was. And I would end up getting one person contact, and then I'd call that contact and get a little bit more educated. And then they would give me somebody else that I'd contact, and I'd contact that person with questions. And then I'd become a little bit more educated. And it was a one step at a time. And so it can often feel very, very lonely and feel like you're the only person in the whole planet that this stuff is happening to you. And it's not. Please, 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 no. And hopefully that's not the case. You know, hopefully you can get through it. But my whole message of the Divorcing Strong is that you can come through it stronger on the other end, that you really can advocate for yourself, advocate for your children, whether you're male or female. Either way, it's very important that this is just a moment in your life. This isn't your life. So there is hope on that. So I'm excited about our guest today, because she has so much experience in the court when it comes to divorcing, in the divorce space. And I love bringing people to you that can bring you different perspectives, different ideas, different strategies. We're really going to dive into strategies today. So if you are just beginning your divorce and you need some ideas for strategy and what to consider so that you can come through divorcing strong, then please stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode. So today I'm sitting down with a family law attorney who has been inside of hundreds of courtrooms. Sorry about that. Helena Trachtenberg is a partner. Helena, I'm sorry, I just messed up her name. She just told me. Helena Trachtenberg is a partner at Cooper Trachtenberg Law Group, LLC, the Chicago area, where she has spent her career representing clients across a full spectrum of family law: divorce, property division, maintenance and alimony, child support, parental time, and allocation of parental responsibilities. But what makes Helena exceptional isn't just her courtroom record. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, a distinction held by fewer than 1,600 attorneys in the entire country. And she is one of the rare family law attorneys who also serves as a child representative, a guardian ad litem, and parental coordinator. That means that she sat in every chair in the room. She has been the advocate, she has been the neutral, and she has been the voice for children who had no one else to speak for them. She completed the mediation skills training at Northwestern University, has been named to Best Lawyers and Super Lawyers Rising Star multiple years in the running, and she has spoken on colleges across the Chicago area on child support and parental time. So, Helena, welcome to the show. Sorry, I messed up your name.
That's okay, Becky. You're not the only one, and you fixed it. And thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Absolutely. Well, I always say to people, look, done is better than perfect, and we do our very, very best. And I don't at all profess to be perfect. And so thank you for your patience with me. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on the show today and share your wisdom with people, because boy, I am just so impressed with your background and your dedication to this. So before we kind of dive into that real quick, let me ask you a question of what got you into this industry, into the divorce space, even becoming a lawyer, and what makes you so passionate about the work that you do?
So it's going to sound a little silly, but I decided I was going to be an attorney when I was 6 years old.
What? See, I tell people all the time, I'm like, nobody really decides to be in this space. But what happened at 6?
I watched a lot of Matlock with my grandpa, and I thought it looked really interesting to kind of investigate the facts and build a case. And, obviously practicing family law is nothing like Matlock, but it looked interesting. And most of my childhood and young adulthood, I thought it's either that or maybe being a history teacher. And my mother always said, you don't have the patience to be a teacher. And I never understood that until I became an adult and realized she's probably right. Yeah, so I couldn't wait to become an attorney most of my life. I finished college a year early to get to law school sooner. So
did you know any lawyers? Like, I mean,
I
know
didn't. I was my family immigrated here when I was 3 years old from what's now Belarus. Back then it was the Soviet Union, and no one was an attorney in my family or our group of family friends.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm the first one in the family. It's something I'm very proud of. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to do family law. I thought I wanted to do government regulatory work in biopharmaceuticals. I did a thesis on it in college. I really thought, I wanted to do that. And then, in law school, you take different internships, you get different, jobs, and you kind of, and I realized I wanted to be in the courtroom. And so, one of my first jobs out of law school was in family law, and for the last 16 years, that's all I've done. So
wow. So was it mostly litigation? Is that where you're saying you wanted to be in the courtroom, or was it you just wanted to be in the court system?
I initially, when I started practicing, I didn't think I ever wanted to go to court. And then I thought I wanted to be more on the in-house transactional side, and I tried that, and definitely some pros to that. But I realized building the strategy and the cases and the investigating and the things, there's more of that in court. And so family law was, if you're litigating in court regularly, you're maybe doing criminal defense, or you're maybe doing personal injury, or maybe doing family law. And there's other fields, but those kind of have the most, court action from what I was exposed to as a young attorney. And so family law it was.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many aspects, and it sounds like you have played a lot of roles, or you've sat in all those chairs, so to speak, like we said in the intro with that. What interests you the most about family law?
So the places where you can help families decrease chaos for kids, is, I think, a really important role that attorneys for husbands, wives, moms, dads, kids, et cetera, can really be value added. So that's where I focus a lot of my work, and wearing the different hats, whether I'm the litigating attorney, and in some cases you have to litigate hard. In some cases, it's a case where it's a cooperative litigation, right? We're all working together to help resolve, the case, to cases where I represent the kids as a guardian ad litem or a child's representative, cases where I'm mediating, cases where I'm a parenting coordinator, or we're doing a collaborative divorce. There's a lot of interdisciplinary skills and overlap in those roles, and learning a lot of the alternative roles helped make me a better litigator, have like what I call higher litigation IQ, like when you need to fight and when you might be able to accomplish it a different way. And also knowing what happens in court helps me better reality test with parties when I'm mediating or when I'm representing the kids, because you got to have situations that are going to help people, once they resolve things in court, hopefully keep them out of court or minimize how much they have to return to court, because it's stressful, it's costly. The parents feel it, the kids feel it, and that's, the goal is to work yourself out of a job.
Well, I don't know if some people feel that way, that attorneys are that way, but yes, good attorneys. Yes. I think that's definitely something that you want. You want a real advocate that's doing, and that kind of goes to what we want to talk about is strategy, is because I love that what you said is there's times to litigate, there's times not to litigate, there's times to keep things in more collaborative, and sometimes there is no other choice than to litigate. So talk a little bit about that as they're starting a process, or maybe they're in the middle of it. What would you say to somebody? Like, what are some strategies that they can have in navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, you need to know what you're working with, right? Sometimes people are caught completely off guard by a divorce, or they get served with papers, or they have to file unexpectedly because, God forbid, something happened with the child, or there's some domestic violence incident happened, or all the money went missing. Sometimes there's these really catastrophic situations that you have to like react to immediately and then kind of get your bearings and figure things out. Other times, a lot of the things you can kind of tell in the initial consultation phase of the case. So, if it's someone where their spouse is in control of all the money, and they don't, sometimes there's people that I talk to that have to go in a different place. They can't be at home because maybe they're being tracked, or maybe they're, so sometimes, if someone's in a very abusive situation, it's probably not going to be a polite, cooperative situation. At least not at the beginning stages of it, right? Sometimes, if it's a case where, there is a lot of transparency between the spouses about the assets, about the schedules, about the kids, and everyone, is starting out in a very cooperative sense. Okay, there's probably a higher likelihood that we're going to be able to try to work something out without a lot of court involvement. It also depends on who the lawyer on the other side is. Sometimes you can have a really volatile, toxic, unhealthy situation, but if you have, most of the judges are great. If you have a good, strong judge and you have a good attorney on the other side, sometimes you can manage it in ways that are less chaotic, and there's less court, and because everyone can be reasonable, even if it's a really, even if it's a powder keg. Sometimes if you have the right team, and that can mean opposing counsel, because you do have to work with opposing counsel to resolve it, because at the end of the day, if there's kids, they're always going to be a family. It's not like a business transaction where these two companies never have to contract with each other again, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, how many times like before you take a case, do you find out if there is counsel? I want to know who that counsel is to see before I say yes to taking on this case. Is that pretty normal?
Yes. And it's not that I would necessarily turn down a case because of who's on the other side,
Right.
but sometimes that gives you a sense of what you might be able to expect,
Yeah.
both good and bad. And the different ways you may have to manage it. And that's okay. But you need to know, I always tell my clients, we can control our side of it, right? Like there's five, there's five people here, right? There's you and me, there's your spouse and their attorney, or the other parent and their attorney, and then there's the judge. I can advocate, I can't control what the judge is going to do. I can advise you on likely outcomes, but at the end of the day, the judge wears the robe.
Right.
And I can't control what the other spouse or the other parent's going to do, and I can't control what their lawyer's going to do. But on our end, we'll do everything we can,
So when advocating for someone, do you mainly work with women or men or both, or does it matter?
We work with both. It does not matter.
Okay.
There's cases where the women have all the financial knowledge and the men don't, right? There's cases where I think that's less common, but there's cases where unfortunately women are abusive. There's cases, unfortunately, where when it comes to mental health issues or addiction and kids, moms can have problems with alcohol or substances or complex mental health issues just as much as dads can. And you just kind of got to take the situation, the fact pattern you have, and do the best you can with it.
Yeah, and being a guardian ad litem, kind of explain to people what a guardian ad litem is and what's the purpose of a guardian ad litem, especially if you've got a high conflict or there's some abuse going on. When would a guardian ad litem be appointed, or would you consider getting one? And what's the role that they play?
So I'll talk about it in Illinois. I don't know if in every state it's exactly the same, but in Illinois, in family law, the role of the guardian ad litem is you're supposed to be the eyes and ears of the court. So the judge isn't going to go into people's homes and talk to the kids and talk with mom and dad and all these things. So they appoint someone that can be the boots on the ground for the court. So when I am the guardian ad litem, I can make recommendations to the court on what's in the best interest of the child. The court ultimately decides. Nothing anyone tells me is confidential. So I will speak with the parents separately. Sometimes after I've done that, sometimes I might meet with them together to see if we can resolve certain things. I'll speak with the attorneys. If there are attorneys, I will see the kids with each parent. A lot of times I will speak with relevant collaterals. For example, I may speak with the school. I might speak with the doctor. I might speak with the kid's therapist. I might speak with the parent's therapist. I might recommend I might help the parents get into parent counseling or other things to help kind of mitigate some of the challenges. So sometimes it feels like you're kind of a case manager because sometimes
you're the babysitter.
No, well, but sometimes you're kind of helping connect the dots of where, you get to kind of see where some of the miscommunications are happening or why they might be happening or, and then you make recommendations to the court on, parenting, decision-making, parenting time. Sometimes there's more niche issues. Sometimes it's a school issue. Is the kid going to go to school by parent A or parent B? Things like that. Sometimes there's, special needs that a child may have or special medical needs that a child has, and the court needs help navigating, if mom and dad can't agree on what needs to happen. So those are the cases that can be helpful. There's also, we have a role called a child's representative where you're, it's a confidential relationship between you and the child, and you can advocate. You're not a witness at trial. You're like kind of one of the lawyers, and you're helping to advocate for the child's best interest. Not necessarily what the child wants, because sometimes what they want is not what's in their best interest. But it's a bit of a different role. But that can be really helpful to the court when they're trying to weed through the he said, she said of
Right.
each parent, or they know there's more going on, and they need more insight on how we can help the family.
And so do you do a lot of guardian ad litem or child representative work? Is that?
So right now, probably about half of my work is
Wow.
the alternative models, which is the guardian ad litem work or mediation or parenting coordination. And the other half, I represent, husbands and wives or moms and dads as their individual lawyer.
And when they do the guardian ad litem of their child, is that usually court ordered or not court ordered? I mean, court appointed, or is that something that they would hire you to do? Or how does that work?
It's a court appointed role. So, and that can happen several different ways. A judge can think they need a guardian ad litem, and then, there's approved lists in each of the counties, or in each of the counties that I practice in. We practice in Cook Lake and DuPage County, and, they'll look at someone on the approved list, and sometimes the judge picks who it is. Sometimes the judge will ask lawyers if they have a recommendation, if there's anyone they think might be a good fit, and sometimes judges are open to hearing that. Some judges, want to pick their own because, they don't want anyone to think that, well, so-and-so's lawyer proposed so-and-so, therefore, there's some sort of bias or something, which there isn't. It's just sometimes lawyers know certain personality profiles that might be good for certain cases, or sometimes another language or experience in certain types of cases, might make someone more efficient or more effective.
Yeah, I think so. It's tough with kids. I know I've done a lot of shows on kids and how they get stuck in between sometimes and they get lost in the court system. So I love that the guardian ad litem, a good guardian ad litem, can really do great things for the case and being able to help the best interest of the child. That's really what they're there for. And I know I've got a case right now, just personally, where we have a guardian ad litem, and working with her and having them be neutral, right? So that the focus is on the child, not on, of course, counsel for both of the other parties have their counsel, but to have someone go advocate for the child is super important. I love that work that you're doing. What would you also say to people that are going through divorce? What are the different options that you would see, or some of the mistakes that they make early on in a case that really send them in the wrong direction?
Yeah. So, and if, divorce, I think, is a really unfair process in that a lot is expected of people who are going through one of the hardest things in their life. Mm-hmm. And I think that the people that do well, whatever that means, is they're the people that have support. That could be a therapist, that could be a friend, that could be, a family member. I think it's important to have a therapist if you're going through divorce, to help kind of manage some of the emotions and some of the emotional stress and the psychological stress that they're going through, so that doesn't get in the way of their decision-making abilities on a day-to-day basis with the other parent, on a day-to-day basis with their attorneys, in court, with a guardian ad litem. I think the people that do well are ones that can put their egos aside, can listen, can be coachable. I try to be really transparent and direct, whether it's with my own clients or with the parents of kids I'm representing or with their lawyers, about people's strengths and weaknesses. And everyone's got them. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect. And, I may say, this parent would really benefit from some parenting classes or addressing certain characteristics of theirs, right? And the people that get defensive about that and then don't do those things, versus
We're
people.
not coachable. You know what I mean? I've been a coach for 16 years and I say the same thing. I'm like, look, are you open to coaching? Right? Are you open to suggestions or doing things a little bit different? And it is quite difficult to work with people who are not open to that, and especially trusting the professional or working with the professional as the attorney,
Right.
in strategizing.
Yeah. And so, the people that are able to hear the advice for what it is and take steps in that direction are going to do better than people who double down, or people who get defensive, or people who think that, oh, well, you're only saying this because my spouse said that to you and you're on their side. And it's like, I'm not. When I represent a client, I'm on my client's side, but I may tell them some hard truths about things that they would benefit from, right? And when I represent the kids, I may tell a parent, look, if you want more parenting time, you currently live an hour away. Like, is there an option for you to move closer? And there may not be, because of work or finances,
Right,
or whatever.
right.
And that's up to them. But whatever it is that's happening, we like to give feedback on, what this could mean, or, might mean, from how a court may view it, if there's no endangerment of the child, that parents can have parenting time. There's not
Right.
going to be a restriction on their parenting time,
Yeah.
So understanding that you don't have complete control over the law, the court, what the other side might do, and being able to pivot and being able to understand and accept that, there may be limits on certain things.
I think that is a really hard thing I know I can only speak for myself, and that it is hard to get into a system or into a process of going through a divorce, first of all, that I don't understand and didn't know, right? Number one. And then you're trusting people around you to advocate for you that you just barely met or that you don't have a long-term relationship with. And number three, I felt very out of control, and I wanted to control something, and when you don't know any result, and even attorneys don't know, I mean, like you said earlier, you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You never know what the judge is going to rule on and what they're not going to rule on. We do our very best to present it in the way and have our case and go there. But this is more the reason why to keep it out of court, because if you keep it out of court, you retain more power and influence over the outcome. And so it is hard. I mean, especially if you've dealt with trauma during the marriage, and now you're trying to find some some balance in that process. And it's just like, but I can only do what I can do. So it's an exercise, and it goes right back to what you said, is make sure that you have the emotional support so that you can come stronger and more logical to working with an attorney. Because I mean, I've even had it too, where people call me and they want to throw everything at me. And I'm like, look, I just do subpoenas. Like, I don't need everything about your case. I just need to know, who do we subpoena? What's the name? What do you want? And I can feel that. I now see it because I was an oversharer with an attorney, and we really, first of all, it was very expensive. And secondly, he kind of just checked out because he had too much information. So it's understanding how to navigate that and work with an attorney the way that they need to be worked with, knowing that none of us have an attachment. None of us know what the outcome is going to be, but we're going to do the best that we can. And it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when, you tell someone we're going to do the best we can, and they're like, what does that mean? But this is my family and,
I know.
and my livelihood and my nest egg and my kids. And my day-to-day life. What do you mean like what is the best you can? Like why can't you guarantee me, sir? And you can tell them reasonable things they can expect. The other challenge is also sometimes people don't know that they have trauma, or they don't know that they have things that are coming up, and they're discovering it during the process. And that's a lot, the divorce process. And that's a lot to throw at someone to have to work through, those pieces, while also having their finances, their kids, everything in flux, and lawyer bills on top of it. That's an immense amount of stress.
Yeah.
That falls on people's shoulders. That's why I said it's almost an unfair and impossible process, because people are being challenged and tested in so many different ways all at the same time, and they're on some level somewhat under a microscope to do it all well and handle it all well.
I know. What do you love most about what you do?
I love being able to develop strategy to help clients achieve realistic, reality-tested goals, so that they can hopefully avoid, the divorce in court that never ends, right? Or they can get a reasonable result, a fantastic result if we can get there, but they can get a reasonable result, a good result, achieve certain goals that are important to them, and then move on to the next chapter of their life.
Right. It's that fair and equitable division. And that's probably, I don't know, I was going to ask you a question earlier that, like, is that part of what you like about this work? Because I mean, it's not for everybody, right? But that every single case is different. And so the strategy is different based on what they give you and I remember as a property manager, I loved the part of my job that I never knew. Like, I'd go in one day and it was like one day I was evicting somebody, and the next day I was throwing a big party for the tenants, and I mean, it was unpredictable, but some people don't like that. But is that one part that you do like about this, is that somebody brings you a problem or chaos and you're like, all right, let's get to strategy, and let's create a pathway, or a roadmap.
It's certainly never boring. There's always challenges. Just when you think you've heard it all, there's something new. And there's always new ways that there's always new tools out there that are always evolving. There can be new solutions to problems that you can come up with, or you can work with people to come up with. There's always ways to try to help situations. Now, sometimes people just need to cut their losses. Sometimes there is no good outcome. Sometimes you're choosing between the least bad outcome. Sometimes you're telling a client not to let perfect be the enemy of good, but you're always meeting people. You're always learning more about people and family situations, and using the knowledge you have from other cases to help future cases. And, in my office, the lawyers, we meet and we brainstorm with each other. What's the best strategy? What's the best approach, depending on the personality dynamics, the fact patterns. Sometimes it's clear cut and easy, but most of the time it's not, And so, it's always a challenge, but it can be so rewarding on some cases. It can be so rewarding where you see your clients excel, or you see a parent reunite with a child, or a parent get sober, or a child get the services that they needed, or something. There can be some real feel good moments in it.
Yeah, I definitely say to people all the time is hold the space. Hold the space for miracles to happen, and hold the space for yourself and for the people around you, because it is tough. I mean, miracles do happen, and children do come back, and children do understand eventually at some point. They can kind of connect the dots on their own, but it's sometimes hard to be patient during that process. And so I would gather that that's one of the things that you help people do is like, look, trust the process. The process is, we may not know what it's going to look like in the end, but we'll do the best that we can to get you to where you need to be so that you can close that chapter and move on. Because that really is the ultimate goal, and I so appreciate what you do. I know we connected because of subpoenas and things, but typically most cases don't need subpoenas, right? And hopefully you can get them in discovery. And I'm grateful to hear that you have one of your cases that way. So I was like, yes. Yeah. And we move on, but it is a very important thing. And thank you for the children work that you do as well. There's a beautiful song out there. It's called "Fighting for Me When I Can't Fight for Myself," and it is a beautiful song that our little granddaughter sings all the time. I introduced that song to her many about a year and a half ago, and she sings it all the time to us. And it's just kind of like sometimes the kids don't have the words, but they can sing a song and say, look, thank you for doing what you do. Helena, I know that it's sometimes you probably see outcomes that are not favorable, just because that's the way it is. But the work that you do your best to try to advocate for them. It's really very, very important. So if people reach out to you, I want to make sure that we put your information down there. You also have the show notes down below that you can reach out to Helena. You only practice in Illinois, is that correct? Just the Chicago area or all of Illinois?
We do Cook, Lake, and DuPage County. They're all in the Chicagoland area. I am licensed in Florida, but I do not practice in Florida. And thank you for, giving people a platform so that they hear that they're not alone and they can hear advice on, getting the same advice, from an attorney if you're calling them is a lot more expensive than, getting to watch it online and getting some foundational information when people are going through a really hard time.
Yeah. And honestly, that's really one of the reasons, even when I was in Hawaii, I thought of doing a podcast because I just thought, man, if I can, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice, but if I can have attorneys come on that have the experience that you guys are in, you're in the field, you're seeing
in the trenches.
Yes, you're in the trenches. And I'm losing my voice. So it's like going low. But anyway, I just appreciate the work that you're doing in the trenches. And if I can give you a platform and be able to get it out there and help people, then I feel like I'm doing my job to educate. Because I always say the more education you have, even when I was a real estate agent many, many years ago, I used to, before anybody put a pen to paper, I would sit them down and say, look, I'm not like other real estate agents. I'm going to put you through Real Estate 101. I'm going to teach you about the real estate transaction and this REPC before you sign anything so that you're coming through more educated. And I guess all these years later, now I'm just doing it in the legal field. So very, very grateful. So I love finishing off my podcast with asking this question is, what does divorcing strong mean to you?
I think divorcing strong means that you got a fair or reasonable outcome and you get to move forward with your life for the next stages. You don't spend so long in divorce court. You hear some of these cases, and sometimes they have to go on for 5 years. It's rare, but sometimes people spend so much time fighting to make sure they get a fair deal or, whatever it is, that they don't remember that, like, at the end of the day, they still have to move forward with their life, and they can't let the divorce process become their new normal for years and years and years. They're going to start a new chapter, and if they get an outcome that they can live with, that's reasonable, and that allows them to move forward in the next chapter, sometimes that's better than paying a lawyer another $10,000 to get them another $10,000,
Right.
So
Yeah, I love that. I think it is. It's true. And I think it's right what you just said at the very beginning is it's a fair and equitable division. And really, ultimately, the person that's divorcing is the only one that really gets to make that decision. Where's their priority and what will help them to move to the next chapter and move on? Because I truly believe that, and I always say this, that there's just this beautiful wife and a husband.
Sometimes there's a beautiful life.
Yeah, there's a beautiful life on the other side of divorce. So thank you so much, Helena, for coming on and sharing your wisdom and being willing to, you did awesome. You're amazing.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Hold on just one second. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the Divorcing Strong podcast. I'm Becky Sampson. Make sure that you like and share and comment on these videos. If you want questions asked on the shows, make a comment, ask a question. I'm happy to go search and find the people who can answer your questions on a legal side of it, just general legal stuff. Or if I have so many people within this network now that I can send you to or connect you with. I even had a call today from somebody that immediately when she says that I need someone here, I'm like, yeah, got somebody. So I am a connector. I love to connect people with resources so that you can navigate through this. And also check us out on all of the audio platforms as well. We are on Apple and Spotify and a bunch of other ones. So, and you can also check out our Divorcing Strong audio. I have a bunch of songs that I've created for people going through divorce. So you can find that too on all the audio platforms. But thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Divorcing Strong podcast. This episode is sponsored by Only Subpoenas, where we make subpoenas simple, powerful, and 100% compliant. If you're having a hard time getting the information you need to settle for a fair and equitable divorce, let us help you. Whether you're an attorney or you're navigating divorce on your own, subpoenas can uncover the truth, secure the evidence you need, and level the playing field. To see how we can help, book an appointment by visiting our website at onlysubpoenas.com.